Hello everyone, and welcome to the first in a series of Listen and Learn sessions hosted by Cheshire West and Chester Safeguarding Children Partnership. Following on from the launch of the new neglect strategy and practice guidance in partnership with the NSPCC. Now in a moment I'm going to hand you over to Kerry Williams, Service Manager of the Safeguarding Children Education team, and Morag Braga, School Attendance Manager from the School Attendance Support team. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. In this briefing, we will be looking at definitions of neglect with a particular focus on keeping children safe in education and working together to safeguard children guidance, why it is important to highlight educational neglect, what the impact of educational neglect can have on children and young people, and what you can do as professionals. There is no statutory definition of educational neglect, but every child does have the right to a good and suitable full-time education. And Section 7 of the Education Act 1996 places a duty on parents to ensure the education of their compulsory school-age children. The parent of every child of compulsory school age shall cause him to receive efficient full-time education suitable to his age, ability and aptitude, and to any special education needs he may have, either by regular attendance at school or otherwise. There are a variety of definitions for educational neglect, as you can see in the definitions from the DFE, NSPCC, working together to safeguard children and working together to improve school attendance. But they all have a common theme, which is when a parent or carer fail to ensure regular school attendance or provide a suitable education. Educational neglect is one of Cheshire West and Chester's Safeguarding Children Partnership's key priority areas, and our definition is educational neglect is involving a carer failing to provide a stimulating environment, show an interest in the child's education at school or otherwise, support their learning, or respond to any special needs, as well as failing to comply with state requirements regarding education and attendance. Keeping children safe in education, which is statutory guidance for all educational settings, states children may need a social worker due to safeguarding or welfare needs due to abuse and or neglect and or complex family circumstances. A child's experiences of adversity and trauma can leave them vulnerable to further harm, as well as educationally disadvantaged and facing barriers to attendance, learning, behaviour and mental health. Children who are absent from education for prolonged periods and or on repeat occasions can act as vital warning sign to a range of safeguarding issues, including neglect, child sexual and child criminal exploitation, particularly county lines. Working together to improve school attendance guidance includes information on how schools should work with local authority children's services where school absence indicates safeguarding concerns. It is clear that although this guidance is for educational settings, there is recognition that attendance issues cannot be seen as just a school issue and that multi-agency working is required to help improve this area of concern. As with keeping children safe in education, working together to safeguard children guidance, which is statutory guidance for all agencies that work with children, it's clear that this is not a single agency problem and that all agencies need to work collaboratively to support attendance at school. It states practitioners should be proactive in sharing information as early as possible to help identify, assess and respond to risks or concerns about the safety and welfare of children. This may be when problems are first emerging, for example, persistent school absences. Education settings are uniquely placed to identify concerns and, with partners, should address them early. This includes, but is not limited to, information such as increased absence or mental health problems, which may be indicators that a child has suffered or is at risk of suffering neglect, abuse and exploitation. Social care assessments should recognise a child's entitlement to a full-time education and the positive impact attendance at school has on personal development and attainment. Child protection and child need plans should set out a child's engagement with education and what actions are to be undertaken. Whilst a child being electively home educated does not automatically mean they are at greater risk of harm than those who are on a school roll, it is important that agencies recognise that the child may not be seen very often by professionals. The EHE team will refer a child to the school attendance support team if they deem an education is not suitable and efficient in order for them to use legal powers to ensure an education is taking place. Failure to respond or to put a child on a school roll may trigger a referral to social care for educational neglect. Case law provides examples where lack of suitable education has amounted to significant harm. The DfE have proposed changes which have been referenced within the Keeping Children Safe, Helping Families Thrive policy statement, which the department published recently. Colleagues will particularly want to be aware of the Home Education and Child Protection section on page 13, which sets out the additional children not in school related safeguarding measures which are being proposed. Specifically, the relevant section of the paper says, we propose to introduce a new requirement whereby if a child registered at a school is subject to an inquiry under Section 47 of the Children Act 1989 or on a child protection plan, their parent will need local authority consent to home educate that child. If a child in those categories is already being home educated, the local authority will have a power to require them to attend school. This will help ensure further help and protection for children suffering or likely to suffer significant harm. This will be further aided by our plans to enable local authorities to consider the home and any other learning environment when determining whether home education is suitable. We are also planning to create a duty on local authorities to have and maintain children not in school registers. These measures will create registers of all children not in school in every local authority in England, as well as a duty on local authorities to provide support to families where it was requested by the parent. I will now pass you across to Morag.
Thank you, Kerry. Why is it important to highlight educational neglect? Education is a national value, and it is so important that all the examples on this slide are underwritten by legislation. Not enrolling their child at a school. Under the Education Act 1996, the Council has a duty under children missing in education to investigate when a parent or guardian does not enrol their child at school. Not providing appropriate home education. The Council uses school attendance orders where it is found that a parent is not providing appropriate education. Allowing chronic school absence. The legislation allows for prosecution in situations where an offence has been committed in situations of chronic school attendance. Failure to attend a special educational need. The needs of the child are paramount. Remember Section 7 of the Education Act. Education neglect, persistent absence and severe absence are recurring themes in safeguarding practice reviews. Regular school attendance is a protective factor for most vulnerable children. School attendance is everybody's business, and the local authority intention is not to increase social care referrals, but to create shared responsibility and increase partner agencies' confidence in responding to educational neglect. Education is key to enable a child to thrive and to develop into an adult who contributes to society. And while we must always keep an eye on all these children who are not in school, I have an example of a high school who had a child with poor attendance. They made regular school attendance to check on the safety and well-being of the child and uncovered a significant situation of sibling-on-sibling abuse. They were able then to make suitable referrals, and the case was assessed by Children's Social Care. Indicators. These are some of the things to look out for in your casework or any work you're doing with children and young families. Consistently not maintaining schooling or identifying provision for their child. The Council has a duty to ensure that children are receiving a suitable education. Unable or refusing to provide information about the child's home education. This again is where a parent is failing their duty of Section 7. Not engaging in school meetings to address attendance concerns. Unable to provide substantiated reasons for absence from school. Not engaging in statutory or non-statutory interventions to improve attendance. Again, these are cases of parental failure to ensure appropriate education for their child. Not preventing children from becoming persistently absent, which is below 90% attendance, and/or severely absent, which is below 50% attendance. Lack of capacity to enforce boundaries and routines, or when a child refuses to attend school and adhere to parental boundaries, and the impact of trauma, adverse childhood experiences, or multiple moves of either school or address. We need to investigate and make assessments when we recognise these factors. Remember this in your work, that your work with children is crucial. Consider using the multi-agency toolkit. There are lots of resources available on the Live Well website and Starting Well website, and the NHS online resource is My Child Too Ill for School? Other impacts of missing school that has on a child. Children and young people who miss school miss out not only on learning and education, but also miss out on developing social and emotional skills, keeping friendships, as absences makes retaining friendship groups more difficult, attending school or all school activities and school trips. This is particularly pertinent at a time when perhaps resilience has fallen. Some children are becoming more isolated through their absence from either anxiety or gaming or social media or other reasons. So with the long-term effects of missing school, it can have a greater impact on school grades and leading to becoming not NEET, which is not in education, employment and training, struggle more with mental health, and some are even unable to leave the home, unable to form or sustain meaningful relationships, absent for 5 more days than the average. Young people are more likely to not be in work by the age of 42 and have lower wages, becoming homeless or involved in crime and at risk of exploitation. We all need to work together to tackle educational neglect. One part of the Council's vision is we should all play our part to support children and young people to get the best start in life. We need to improve transition between educational settings and from childhood to adulthood. We have to eliminate the attainment gap between all pupils and disadvantaged pupils. Remember to use the mental health support teams in school. Starting Well and Early Help and Prevention both have mental health offers. Learning how to develop healthy relationships in education is so important, and we see this later with the pressure that we have on our domestic violence services and at MARAC. Again, we should look at how we are helping our children and young people to get to the best start in life. The Cheshire West and Chester Vision also recognises there is a problem with social mobility within the borough. This is not what we want for our young people. We do not want homelessness or criminal exploitation. We should identify and respond to patterns of risky behaviour. The Children's Commissioner Back into Education was created after the COVID pandemic in a response to a rise in absence rates. Do any of these reasons given by the children resonate with the children and young people in your school or your caseworker or in your appointments? So children have cited reasons like health conditions, transport and uniform costs, caring responsibilities, parental dislike of school, alcoholism or other addictions, neglect or lack of knowledge of potential benefits. And you can read the rest of the list and many reasons aside. The voice of the child is key to attendance planning for our children and young people. Support and action, looking at attendance percentages. 90 to 100% is a universal response to attendance with the school, the parent, the child and the community. 50% to 90%, you need to consider appropriate support and interventions, for example, team around the family or an early help assessment. 50% or less, it should trigger response from all partners to consider educational neglect. All practitioners should consider the significance of educational neglect. This is where you again look at the indicators and consider if there is significant harm or a risk of significant harm from educational neglect. Demonstrate professional curiosity in relation to children not in full-time education. What is the child doing when they're not in school or in education? What's the outcome for a child or young person who is attending education for less than 50% of the time? Challenge parents and carers as to why their children are not in or attending school. Remember the parental duty of Section 7 of the Education Act 1996. Consider what they or others can do to resolve absences. The challenge may create conversations that bring up solutions. Consider how they and others might resolve the absence from school. For example, screen for educational-based school non-attendance. You can contact the Educational Psychology Service for training. There are EBSNA resources available, including parents, on the Live Well website. There are also resources on the Virtual School website and the Autism Service website. Training for schools is bookable on Equip. A 40-minute free training video is currently being developed on EBSN. Seek advice from the child's school and/or the school attendance support service if you are concerned about a child's attendance. They can be contacted at educationwelfare@cheshirewestandchester.gov.uk. Attendance is not a solitary issue. It is a symptom of an array of underlying causes. And I'll just pass you back to Kerry.
Thanks, Morag. Okay, so as professionals within Cheshire West and Chester, what are we asking from you? We would like you to sign up to our pledge, which is to work jointly to improve attendance across our local authority, champion the benefits of good school attendance in our work, support families to help children develop and maintain good attendance habits in the early years and throughout their school life. Celebrate good and improved attendance. Listen to children and young people's experiences and how they affect their ability to engage in school life daily. Make sure the right kind of support is available so children and young people can attend school. Work together to remove barriers to good attendance. Minimise disruption to learning if children and young people are unable to attend school. And review how our organisations can support all children and young people to have good school attendance in Cheshire West and Chester. As multi-agencies, the earlier we can support families when attendance is dropping, the easier it will be for children and young people to remain in school and achieve good outcomes for their future. Want specific